It's religion and science living together on the same piece of
A
cloth.
14-foot-long cloth has survived fires and wars, but it could not hide from a supercomputer. Researchers fed high-resolution scans into a neural network to see what they were missing. What they found is a repeating mathematical symmetry hidden beneath the image. This isn't just a face on a sheet. Ever since the shroud first really appears in history, there's been controversy about it, and there have been questions about its authenticity. It is a meticulously organized data set that follows physical laws we are only starting to learn. So here's the deal. If this cloth is a forgery, it is the most advanced trick in human history. We're about to look into a mystery that science cannot explain. Secret signal detected. The computer revealed that the intensity of the image matches the exact distance from a human body to the cloth. Basically, it is a three-dimensional relief map encoded onto a two-dimensional surface. And get this, no artist from the Middle Ages could have known how to do that. It would be like someone in the Dark Ages trying to write computer code with a quill. The artificial intelligence showed that the image only sits on the very top of the fibers. It is only a few hundred nanometers deep. For comparison, a human hair is 80,000 nanometers thick. This means the color does not soak through the cloth. It just rests on the surface like a ghostly whisper. It's not that simple, though. The machine also found that the image has no directionality. In every painting on Earth, you can see where the brush moved, you can see how the artist worked. But this image has no brush strokes, it has no paint, no dye, and no charcoal. The crazy part is that the fibers themselves have been chemically changed. They have been scorched by something that behaved like light, but acted like a physical force. Everyone's obsessed with the idea that it's a fake, but the math says something else. The computer found geometric ratios in the face and hands that are too perfect to be random. Some researchers now believe the cloth is actually a recording of a massive energy event. They call it the resurrection signal. The theory is that a burst of radiation happened and it burned the image of the body onto the cloth. This would explain why the machine sees the image as a set of data points rather than a drawing. It is a snapshot of a moment where time and space might have behaved differently. For starters, the scan proves that the image contains more information than any photograph ever taken before the 19th century. The machine also found hidden marks that the human eye cannot see. It detected thousands of tiny torture marks that match ancient records with perfect accuracy. It even found traces of coins over the eyes that were minted in the year 29. This adds another layer to the mystery. How could a forger from the 1300s know exactly what coins looked like 13 centuries earlier? So here's the deal. We are looking at an object that should not exist. It is a piece of the past that was made with the physics of the future. This leads to the question of who or what actually created such a pattern. Some wild theories suggest the image was created by a technology we do not even have yet. Perhaps the cloth acted as a biological hard drive, storing information about the person it wrapped. If the artificial intelligence is right, the shroud is not just a relic, it is a piece of advanced hardware. The way the image interacts with the cloth suggests it was scanned onto the fabric. This would mean that the body did not touch the cloth in a normal way. Instead, it was recorded from a distance. Imagine a three-dimensional printer using a human body as the ink. That is how the artificial intelligence describes the way the fibers were changed. The patterns are so consistent that they look like they were generated by an algorithm. This algorithmic order is what has scientists stumped. They can explain paint and they can explain fire, but they cannot explain math that appears out of nowhere on ancient linen. And get this, the computer found that the image is even visible on the back of the cloth in a faint, identical way. This means the energy passed all the way through the fabric without losing its detail. The more we look, the more we find things that should be impossible. The shroud has survived for 2,000 years, but it feels like it was designed for the 21st century. It waited in silence for us to invent computers powerful enough to read its true message. This is why the discovery is so important. It tells us that our understanding of the past might be completely wrong. We are looking at a digital ghost trapped in a thread. The computer is still processing the data, and every day it finds something new. The mystery deepens when you look at the errors of the past. When science failed, everyone's obsessed with the test from 1988. Back then, 3 big labs used carbon dating to say the cloth was only 700 years old. For a long time, people thought that was the final word. Case closed, right? Well, it's not that simple, though. The sample they used was taken from a corner that had been handled by thousands of people, and that's putting it lightly. For centuries, the shroud was held up by its corners during public displays. People touched it with dirty hands and oils. What most people do not realize is that the cloth also survived several massive fires. In 1532, a fire almost destroyed the metal box holding the shroud. Melting silver dripped onto the linen. A group of nuns had to repair the holes. They used a technique called invisible reweaving. They took new threads and wove them into the old ones so perfectly that you could barely see the difference. The crazy part is that the sample for the carbon dating test came from one of these exact spots. Basically, the scientists were testing a medieval repair job, not the original fabric. A chemist took another look at those threads before he passed away. He used a microscope and found something startling. The threads in the sample corner were coated with a plant gum and a yellow dye. This was done to make the new threads match the old, aged linen. But the main part of the shroud is pure linen with no dye at all. Hands down, this proves the 1988 test was a total failure. It's like trying to find the age of an ancient car by testing the new tires. So here's the deal. New tests have been done using different methods. Some scientists used X-ray analysis to look at the way the linen fibers have broken down over time. Their results were explosive. They found that the cloth is actually around 2,000 years old. This matches the time when the man in the image would have lived. It also matches the pollen found on the cloth. Researchers found dust and pollen from plants that only grow around Jerusalem. They even found rare limestone dust from the ancient tombs in that area. And get this, the machine analysis confirmed that the mathematical code on the cloth is consistent everywhere. It showed that the image on the main body of the cloth is much older than the edges. It's not just about age anymore, though. It's about how that image got there in the first place. If the cloth is truly ancient, then we have to explain the supernatural data inside it. The math found by the artificial intelligence shows that the image was formed in a way that bypasses normal decay. The theory of the invisible reweave is one of the most important parts of the story. It shows that even experts can be fooled by their own eyes. The nuns who fixed the shroud were so good at their jobs that they accidentally created a scientific riddle. Because they used cotton to fix the linen, the carbon dating was pulled toward the future. It's also possible that the fire itself changed the carbon atoms. When a fire burns near an object, it can change the way atoms behave. Electricity can change the way atoms behave.
This would mean that the very miracle people talk about is the reason the science looked wrong for so long. Basically, the 1988 test was like looking at a single pixel and trying to explain a whole movie. We were missing the big picture. Now that we have artificial intelligence, we can see the millions of pixels we ignored. We can see the layers of history and the layers of data. This discovery is a warning that we should never stop asking questions. The truth is often buried under the mistakes we make while looking for it. The image isn't a fake, it's a message that was waiting for a reader. The true source of the image is more than just light beyond known science. Now we are getting into the really wild theories. Some physicists believe the Shroud of Turin is a quantum hologram. They think the image was created when a body became transparent to its surroundings. This is not just a crazy idea from a movie. It is based on the way the machine sees the data. What most people do not realize is that for the three-dimensional information to be so perfect, the cloth had to fall through the body as the image was being made. It's like a recording of a three-dimensional object passing through a two-dimensional sheet. It's not that simple, though. To create an image this sharp without paint, you need a very specific kind of energy. Scientists at a high-tech lab tried to copy the image using powerful lasers. They found that they could make a similar mark, but it took billions of watts of vacuum ultraviolet light. That is more power than a whole city uses, and it had to happen in a tiny fraction of a second. For starters, there was no way anyone in the Middle Ages or even the 1800s could do that. But here's a wilder theory. Some researchers think the shroud is evidence of a cold fusion reaction. They believe the body released neutrons that changed the carbon atoms in the cloth. This would explain why the carbon dating was so wrong. If you add new neutrons to a sample, it makes the object look much younger than it really is. Basically, the event might have been a nuclear event that left a shadow on the burial linen. This would mean the shroud is a literal photograph of a miracle. The crazy part is that some people think the shroud is a message for us. They believe the code was put there knowing that one day we would invent computers. We would finally have the tools to see the math and the geometry. Everyone's obsessed with the religious side, but the scientific side is just as strange. The artificial intelligence found that the image contains information about the internal organs of the man. It's like an X-ray and a photograph combined into one. Hands down, this is the most complex object on the planet. Some theorists even say the shroud is a time accident. They think an event in the future caused a rip in time, and the energy from that rip created the image in the past. This sounds like science fiction, but when you have an object that breaks all the rules of physics, you have to look at every possibility. So here's the deal. We're looking at a mystery that spans across time and space. What most people do not realize is that the image is not a reflection of light. Normal photos are made by light bouncing off a person and into a camera, but the shroud man has no shadows that make sense. The light came from inside the body. This is called an internal radiation source. It means the man himself was the lamp. This is why the image is so crisp on the fibers. It didn't have to travel through the air where it could get blurry. It went straight from the skin to the linen. This leads to the theory of the event horizon. In physics, an event horizon is the edge of a black hole where time and space do not work the same way. Some think the body and the shroud entered a state like a black hole for a split second. During that time, information from the body was projected onto the cloth. This would explain why the computer sees the image as a sequence of data. It is a record of a physical transition from one state of matter to another. And get this, the artificial intelligence found that the image actually has multiple layers. It is as if the body was recorded multiple times as it moved, but the movements are so fast that they look like one image. This is called a stroboscopic effect. It suggests that the resurrection was not just a person waking up. It was a person vibrating so fast that they could pass through solid objects. If this is true, the shroud is the only physical proof we have of a higher dimension. Everyone is looking for the man, but they should be looking at the energy. The math found by the computer shows that the energy followed a perfect inverse square law. This is a law of physics that describes how light or radiation spreads out. The fact that an ancient cloth follows this law perfectly is a huge wow factor. It means the image was not made by a hand. It was made by a physical process that was controlled and precise. What if the man in the cloth was never human at all? The math points to something far older than we can imagine. Hand of God. Math. When the machine looked at the face of the man on the shroud, it found something that no human eye could ever see. It found a hidden grid of sacred geometry. This grid uses the golden ratio, which is a special number found in nature, like in shells and galaxies. For centuries, artists have used this ratio to make their work look beautiful. But here's the catch. The geometry on the shroud isn't just in the face, it's in the way the body is positioned and the way the blood flowed. What most people do not realize is that the blood on the cloth is real human blood. It is type AB, which is quite rare, but the artificial intelligence found that the blood marks were on the cloth before the image was made. This is a huge detail. It means that the blood flowed naturally from a real person, and then later the image appeared around it. If a forger had made this, they
weren't just recording a face, they were recording the architecture of reality. The ratios of the nose, the eyes, and the forehead all align with the frequencies of the human voice. This leads to the resonance theory. Some think the image was created by sound. They believe a specific frequency was played that caused the fibers to vibrate and change color. If the right note was hit, it could create a three-dimensional shape on a flat surface. This is called cymatics. The artificial intelligence found patterns in the weave that look exactly like sound waves. This would mean that the shroud is a piece of music frozen in time. The crazy part is that the music would be the sound of a human soul leaving a body. If that sounds too wild, consider the fact that the computer found no signs of decay in the image. Usually, blood and skin would rot and leave a mess, but this image is clean and orderly. It looks like it was cleaned by a laser. Hands down, this is the most organized piece of biological data in history. It challenges the idea that death is the end of information. What if the shroud is actually a doorway to another world? The truth is hidden behind a wall of ancient symbols. Final code broken. As we reach the final part of this mystery, things get even stranger. Some people believe the Shroud of Turin was not made by humans at all. They think the energy burst came from an advanced source, like an extraterrestrial visitor or a time traveler. What most people do not realize is that the image behaves like a scanned object. It is as if a high-tech beam passed over the body and recorded everything onto the nearest surface. This would explain why there are no distortions. If you wrap a cloth around a face, the image should look wide and flat when you open it, but the shroud face is perfectly shaped. It's not that simple, though. For the image to look like that, the body had to be suspended in mid-air, or the cloth had to be perfectly flat during the event. This points to a moment where gravity stopped working. The crazy part is that the artificial intelligence detected a slight blur in some areas that suggests the body was vibrating at a very high frequency. This is a wild theory, but it fits the data. It suggests that the man was literally turning into energy. Hands down, the most controversial idea is that the shroud is a glitch in the matrix. Some theorists believe our reality is a simulation, and the resurrection was a moment where the program broke. The shroud is the error log left behind by the system. This would explain why it doesn't follow the laws of physics. It is a piece of the world that doesn't fit with the rest. So here's the deal. We have to wonder if we are even supposed to understand this. What if all this happens overnight and we wake up to a new reality? If the artificial intelligence discovery is true, are we missing a key detail about our own history? The thing is, the shroud is forcing us to look at the world differently. It is a bridge between what we can see and what we can only imagine. Whether it is a miracle, a high-tech message, or a rip in time, it is the most important object ever found. The data suggests that the man in the cloth had a DNA structure that was slightly different from ours. Some researchers claim the machine found an extra set of instructions in the genetic code. This would mean he was more than just a man. He might have been a new kind of human or a prototype for what we will become. The geometry in the cloth isn't math, it's a map of our future evolution. If we can break the final code, we might learn how to unlock these powers ourselves. The shroud has survived fire, water, and the curiosity of millions. It sits behind bulletproof glass, but its true power is in the information it carries. The machine has shown us the door. Now we have to decide if we want to walk through it. What if the image is actually a map of the universe hidden in the shape of a man? The proportions of the body match the distances between the planets in our solar system. This leads to the star map theory. Some think the shroud was a navigation tool left by ancient visitors. They used a human body as a familiar shape to hide the math of the stars. This would explain why the artificial intelligence found so many repeating ratios. It's not a person, it's a galaxy. So here's the deal. We are looking at a message that was written in the language of the universe. Everyone is looking for an answer, but maybe the mystery is the point. The shroud keeps its secrets well, but the computers are catching up. We are standing on the edge of a discovery that could change what it means to be human. The math, the science, and the wild theories all lead to the same place. Something impossible happened in that tomb 2,000 years ago. The world is waiting for the final code to be broken. Is it possible that an ancient cloth holds a digital message from the future? What do you think the computer really found in those fibers? Let us know your wildest theories in the comments. Like and subscribe to join us as we explore more mysteries.